Good afternoon. Thank you and welcome to everybody. My name is Dave Kim, Special Advisor to Mr. Ban Ki-moon. It's a great honor to support him, and it's a very thrilling moment for us to have him here today. And I would just like to mention thank you to also Madam Yu for joining us. The better half, if I may say so, sir. I would just like to take a minute to go and mention a couple of housekeeping items. As you know, we are very excited. However, we just had a small surge, more than 1,200 new cases. So at this time, I would like to ask everybody keep their masks on throughout, unless you are the speaker. And you will have noticed that we are not providing refreshments due to this reason. However, there is a water station outside if you are so inclined, and please help yourself. Lastly, during the signing of the books, if you have purchased your copy or brought your own copy with you, I will give you a slightly detailed instructions later for controlling traffic, and we will ask you to please refrain from up-close selfies and such later on, but I will mention more of that later. So thank you in advance for your understanding and cooperation. I will no longer take up any more time, and may I please introduce another person that does not need to be introduced in this building, our Director General, Dr. Frank Reisberman.
Well, for me also, it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you here to GGGI this afternoon. Our President and Chair of GGGI, but more important today, the 8th Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellency Ban Ki-moon, Madam Yu, many ambassadors in the room, ladies and gentlemen. It is a very special event indeed today. It's the very first book signing of the first book of this new author, very famous author, and our guest of honor. The book, Resolved, Uniting Nations in a Divided World, is of course his autobiography. And I believe we can all be grateful that you have taken the time to organize and write down your memories, your recollections of so many important events in the last half century. Reading a book feels like having a front row seat at world events in a way that journalists can never offer. I received the book a few weeks ago on my Kindle app on my phone, and I've been reading it in my free moments. I'm about halfway through. It's a pretty big book. But I'm reading about your efforts to engage with the military regime in Myanmar in your attempt to bring relief to the victims of Cyclone Nargis. And I think that is just one example of many that show that you, throughout your very high-flying, successful career, have always reminded yourself of the plight of ordinary people crushed between world events, be they war or flood, diseases, or climate change. Reminding us frequently of your own origins as a boy during the Korean War. So in short, I think you have written a fascinating and very accessible book of your incredible life and career. I have found it very inspiring to read, and I so look forward to hearing more from you about the book now. Sir, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Director General Frank Reisberman, for your very kind introduction and organizing this very important and meaningful book launch event. This is the first time ever in my life to have written a book and also having this book launch, even though I have had some through Zoom, virtually with other foreign medias. Again, Excellencies, members of the diplomatic corps, our GGGI colleagues, and also Director General and Ambassador from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I sincerely hope that, I don't know why so many ambassadors are here. I hope that your foreign ministers are not calling you at this time. Maybe some time difference, they may be sleeping. I hope so. So I hope this will not bother or cause any inconvenience to your embassy works. In any way, I thank you all for your interest in my life story and my philosophy for our future. I hope my memoir, Resolved, will spread my ideas and stories to a wide audience that is responsible for world today and tomorrow. I hope it will inspire possibility, spark action, improve cooperation, and ultimately encourage people around the world to become global citizens. As you may know, my lifespan coincides with various types of governance and system. First, colonialism during Japanese era. Some of the most devastating war, Korean War in 1950, dictatorship in Korea, the struggle for democracy at home, and the constant security threat caused by North Korean nuclear weapons. I was raised during the Korean War in 1950s and watched my country grow and mature from terrible poverty to dictatorships to a stable and prosperous democracy with the help of the United Nations and other friendly countries. Without the United Nations troops, humanitarian agencies, and advisors, Korea would not be where she is today. These experiences grounded me in the importance of peace, security, opportunity, and collective responsibility, beliefs that shaped my life and my tenure as a Secretary General. You could say that I was a child of war and a product of multilateralism. When I was only 18 years old, I was one of the very lucky boys or students. The American Red Cross Society has invited some students from 40 countries. And I was one of 130 or 40 international students, boys and girls. There were 4 high school boys and girls from Korea. And I was lucky enough to be chosen. Then a boy from very rural country was able to meet the President John F. Kennedy. I was not even met the mayor of my city at that time. The highest person was my principal of a high school. So can you find me somewhere there? You will see young man to somewhere there if you have a sharp eye. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that really made me resolve and that I should do something for my poor country to recover from this poverty. Then at that time, he said, what was important was whether you were ready to extend your helping hand to others. The Soviet Union, United States were just confronting, they were not talking. Political leaders were not talking each other. But you young boys and girls, you could do. This is what he told us. That was inspiring. And I resolved that I wanted to do something for my country by becoming a diplomat. That is what I'm now standing now. As UN Secretary General, I work to build consensus among 193 member states to support a detailed plan to invest in sustainable development, quantifiable targets to address the climate crisis, and expanded programs to improve women's health and opportunities. And I have never stopped pursuing peace. These are my personal priorities, but they are also the pillars of the United Nations. The UN Charter stresses peace, human rights, and development, but peace is not achieved through merely the cessation of conflict. For people, the true peace requires security and stability. For people who often have rarely or never experienced it, hostilities consume energy, resources, time, and lives. Conflicts makes human rights and development impossible. Human rights are not just the only voting and free speech, but true equality. There must be opportunity for all, regardless of sex, race, religion, or region. Development is not just about fighting poverty, but pursuing dignity of human being. No person can achieve their potential without good health, or basic education, sanitation, decent work, sufficient food, and sustainable environment. Whenever I would travel to regions in distress, I would try to visit first local camps for refugees in Jordan, Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, and elsewhere. There are so many refugees. More than 65 million refugees are away from their homes. This is more than the number of refugees happened during Second World War. We are living in a time of peace, but more refugees than Second World War. The scenes from Mauritania to Pakistan to Jordan was sad and very familiar to me because I was one of the displaced persons. I was not a refugee in terms of legal terms, but refugee, displaced persons. These young people, many of whom had grown up in these camps, I was worried. To their eyes, to their minds, the end of the world would seem to be the boundary of their refugee camp. That is very sad. How are they to put their countries on a better course if they didn't know that there was anything else? Thus, I have tried to send messages of hope and justice to the world's people. To those leaders who have not listened to the voices of people, I have a strongly warned to them. Look, justice will prevail. It may not prevail today. If not today, tomorrow. If not tomorrow, surely in the near future. That has been my messages to those dictators. I hope that other nations are able to achieve what Korea did so long time ago. These are long-term goals, and they require perseverance, patience, creativity, and sustained political will. Also, admittedly, hundreds of billions of dollars. No country, however powerful, resourceful one may be, cannot solve all these problems which we are now having today. Climate change, poverty issues. We have to work on global goals. Then, with all this living 21st century with science and technology and resources, why are we not making more progress? I fault world leaders, and not just the repressive rulers or corrupt regimes. Many leaders are too short-sighted. They are easily become hostages of domestic politics. Not many leaders are looking and doing as global leaders. They are at best domestic, national leaders. This is what I feel very sorry until now. One needs only to look at the global temperatures rising, alliances fracturing, refugees fleeing to begin to understand our precarious conditions. How and what has the United Nations done? Multilateral organizations, including the United Nations, have become weaker. The Security Council has been often divided between and among 5 major powers, permanent members of the Security Council. Just last week, I was in New York. I met all 15 Security Council members in an informal breakfast. And I have repeated same things, that please be united. Because of your division, we are not able to resolve all this. Look at the case in Afghanistan, Yemen, Myanmar, Syria, and elsewhere. At the same time, there are not enough global partnership. We need more alliances among civil societies, NGOs, government, and business communities. These are global partnerships. Number 17 goal number in the among sustainable development goals, I think that is a global partnership. I find it impossible to stress enough the role of young people, some who will live for many years. Maybe my grandchildren and your grandchildren may live easily up to 100 years, even beyond 100 years. Then we should make sure that we make foundations and preparations for their better future. We also must remember that women are not lost opportunities or secret weapons. Women comprises half the world. One New York Times reporter, he said, half the sky. He wrote the very famous, well-known book, Half the Sky. They are women, more women this time. Then they should at least be given equal opportunity, if not more. That has been my consistent message. As for me, ladies and gentlemen, I'm consumed by my passions, particularly climate crisis, women and youth empowerment, and sustainable global development. In fact, I'm working, and I have been working as hard as I was Secretary General. I now wear many hats, and sometimes I think I'm busier since my retirement. Since leaving the United Nations, I have established or been offered a number of international and national positions which have helped me in carrying out many of my moral responsibilities as a former UN Secretary General. I first founded Ban Ki-moon Center for Global Citizens because I thought that what is lacking most is the global citizenship. That's why, together with the former president of Austria, Heinz Fischer, I have established Ban Ki-moon Center for Global Citizens in Austria, Vienna. Then I founded Ban Ki-moon Foundation for a Better Future. These two offices, which I established myself, are mutually reinforcing what I really wanted to do. Of course, GGGI, as a chairman and president of this GGGI, is a very important one. And I'm also chairman of the Global Center on Adaptation. I'm also working as a chairman of the Ethics Commission of International Olympic Committee, for which I'm going to participate in Tokyo Olympic. And I'm also chairman of the Boao Forum, which is known as Asian version of Davos Forum. And there are many, many others. I used to be chairing this National Council on Climate and Air Quality, where I stepped down just last month. There are many, many issues which I am now doing, and I'm very happy to work with you continuously for common goals and for global goals. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as the President of the Assembly and Chair of the Council of the Global Green Growth Institute, this organization, the only intergovernmental organization which was initiated by the Republic of Korea, Korean government, I am very happy to work for making our world greener and build back better and build back greener, caused by climate action and also a pandemic. This is my commitment, and as you may know, there is nothing which only one country can do, as I said. Ladies and gentlemen, now is the time for everyone to transcend our boundaries and act as global citizens. Just forget about which country you are from. We are all human beings. We are part of our human community. And make sure that we leave this planet Earth to our succeeding generations sustainable, prosperous, and united. This is the main messages which I really wanted to leave in my very small, short, limited spaces in my book. So I believe that this is your and our common moral and political responsibility to make sure that our succeeding generations will be able to live in a harmonious way. And I thank you very much for your attendance, and I will be happy to engage in a dialogue with you. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
This was not in the program, Frank, but before we get to the Q&A moderated by yourself, I wonder if we can have the two of you holding a book just for a quick photo for the photojournalist here. Maybe we'll do that right after the Q&A, seeing that we don't have books right with us. So, okay, just. Okay, keep your media partners happy. Fulfill their request. Okay, now may we go on to the Q&A moderated by the Director General.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you found that an inspiring message, very much in line with the book. If you're like me, you will have questions, and this is indeed an opportunity to ask those questions. We have several walking microphones that my colleagues will share with you. So I think if you can raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question and make use of the opportunity to have some conversation with the 8th Secretary General of the United Nations. Who would like to be first? I know the first question is always the one that is.
Don't be shy.
Well, if you want to ask questions.
I think there is one question.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fenella Awan from GGGI. My question is, if there was one moment in your life, maybe when you were UN Secretary General or another role, where you thought you could have had made a different decision or done something differently to influence others for the better, what would it be?
Looking back 10 years of my time, there are numerous cases, mostly conflicts and human right abuses. And all these were caused by the leaders of the countries. Should I done differently from what I did? There might be something which historians will judge that something was done wrong or that should have been done better way. But I leave it to the historians, historical judgment. But as far as I am concerned, I think I have done all what I should do. If there was any gap or anything which was not done, I think that's because of the differences and the differences among the leaders or parties in conflict. Nobody really wanted to give in their positions. The consensus or agreement should not be always 100% in favor of one side. There is no such agreement unless it is absolute unconditional surrender. That may happen in times of war, like in Second World War. The Japan unconditionally surrendered. But in real political situations, like regional conflicts, that does not happen that way. So that is the reason why United Nations has always not been able to make final and complete resolution of these problems. That's why there are still so many problems unresolved. Look at the case of Syria. It's exactly 10th year now. It happened in February and March 2011. Now we are living in 2011, just 10 years. More than 6 million Syrian people had to leave their country as refugees. More than 5 million people are living on the poverty lines in Syria because of Syrian President Assad. It's almost totally unacceptable that Assad was re-elected again. For how many years he will rule? Maybe until 28. Why it happens? Because of the division of the United Nations, more particularly the Security Council, 5 Security Council members. They have been vetoing even in the case of purely humanitarian issues. United Nations was ready to provide humanitarian assistance to Syrian people, but they were blocking, vetoing all this resolution. That is sad. So there are many issues which I could have done or I should have done differently from those things. But it was a little bit powerless for me. And that's what I really made some strong case to the Security Council members last week in New York. Yeah. But let us hope for the better. That's why the title of my book, this is my work. I created title. Normally you say United Nations, but I am talking about uniting the nations. This is a process. We are still in the process of uniting the nations. It is not united, even though we are calling it United Nations. Are the nations are united? No, they are divided. This title is a little bit critical title, which I made. That's a message which I really wanted to send out to world leaders. Yeah, thank you. Yes, yes.
Now you saw many hands. Also afterwards, Miwei in the front here. So who has the microphone? Can you speak up now and can you bring the microphone to the front?
Yeah, please, yes.
Person
yes,
with the microphone, please speak. But Miwei.
Thank you very much. I'm asking this question not to the former Secretary General, but to the human being, Ban Ki-moon. Can you recall the very first emotions beneath the human being when you get notified that you were becoming Secretary General of the United Nations? And likewise, can you recall those emotions the very first hour after your period ended formally? Your inner feelings, your inner emotion. I haven't been able to ask this question to my leaders. I would like to know your emotions.
That's again is after all human, us a human being to address everything. It was called, all the problems are caused by human beings, and it is us human being who should really resolve and settle all these issues. So on many occasions, I have appealed to the leaders. Before being a president or prime minister, they are all human beings. Would you do same thing to your own family? They would not. Then this is a sort of a hypocrisy. So that's what I really wanted to make down-to-earth discussions with the leaders concerned. Sometimes I had to raise my voice, but as I'm coming from Asia East, I really wanted to bring some wisdoms of ancient leaders. Western leaders, they normally quote Aristotle or Socrates or whoever, philosophers. But for me, there are also good way of learning, like Confucius or Lao Tzu or some other very ancient, wise educators and wise men. So it is very important to exchange the learnings and wisdoms, both. But I found that all these wisdoms are same, based on same ground. That is humanity. So it is sometimes very difficult to engage in dialogue with those dictatorial leaders or those people who are diehard engaged in conflict issues. So that is some points of regret which I have not been able to convince them completely. But please know that I have tried my best efforts, and I have been traveling all the times to talk with the world leaders. Just please be global citizens rather than your own country. That has been my consistent message.
Sir, I think
Yeah,
you're still reflecting there on the first question, but this gentleman asked also now about your own feelings. Can you recall your emotions when you learned that you would become the 8th Secretary of the Secretary General of the United Nations?
Now, sometimes I express my own emotions. Yeah, sometimes, frankly speaking. Then you should also know that you can engage in a heated debate with somebody, and then maybe you may not be able to meet him next time. So you should leave a certain space. That is sort of some diplomacy. That is art of diplomacy. So if I can just speak out in front of somebody, next day, then our relationship may be just, over. That is not what Secretary General of UN should do. That's why first point is that I have been trying to maintain good relationship personally with all the leaders. That I think I have succeeded. But on many occasions, I have disagreed each other. That is why world is still, in a very much a difficult situation. Yeah.
Thank you. Good. I think you had the microphone next, and then we'll go to you. Please go ahead.
So can you speak louder and with
The microphone's not working. You'll get another microphone, I think, or turn it on.
I'm from the Embassy of Romania, and following your catching and impressive title, Uniting Nations, I would like to have your not only recollections, but if you can mention your hopes you had in 1991 when the Republic of Korea joined the United Nations, shoulder to shoulder with North Korea. What were your hopes in that specific moment about the future and destiny of Korean nation?
This year we are celebrating 30th anniversary of our joining the United Nations. That moment, I was myself there, to witness both South and North Korea, being admitted to the United Nations. It was quite a historic moment. Then what has happened? Have we been able to make a better relations between the South and North, or the level of tension has been reduced? Unfortunately, we have not been able to achieve such more or better reconciliation between the South and North. There were many such occasions and attempts, and diplomatic and political attempts, at least through 3 presidents of Republic of Korea, President Kim Dae-jung, Roh Moo-hyun, Moon Jae-in. They each visited North Korea and met North Korean leader, respectively. And even what was important was that even United States President met North Korean leader 3 times. That is quite historic. But nothing has changed yet because of just North Korean. I don't need to explain what kind of positions North Korea has been taking. They have become, even though not recognized legally, they are known as having possessing minimum 20 to 60 nuclear weapons, and they have no intention to destroy these nuclear weapons. I myself was one of the first negotiators in 1991, the year when we were admitted to the United Nations. Then there was a historic announcement and declaration between the South and North that the North and South will not manufacture nuclear weapons, will not test, or will not receive, will not deploy, will not possess, and will not use nuclear weapons. This was a firm agreement. North Korea has not yet used nuclear weapons, even though they have tested and they are possessing and deploying everything. Then all this continuing negotiation in various forms between US, North Korea, through 6-party talks, including China and Russia, Japan, then have not yielded any concrete results because of one-sided rejection by North Korean side. This is very sad. We have not made much, seemingly on many occasions, there were such moments of heightened expectations, but all these expectations have not brought any concrete results. That's why we must continue this dialogue with North Korea. You are yeah.
Yes, I'm the ambassador of the Dominican Republic, and it's a wonderful occasion to be here. I was witness of 2 of the years you were in New York, and it is a privilege to share the scenario with you in this presentation of your book. And it's clear that you regret the many pending issues that still divide us in disarmament, in non-proliferation, in the status of peace, and the persistence of conflict. These are really pending areas. And yet, you were able to achieve unity around sustainable development. That is an enduring legacy. That is one of your many achievements. I would like your reflections about the SDGs and where do you see this agenda moving forward after this severe pandemic that has affected the implementation and that calls for acceleration of implementation of the SDGs. Thank you.
Despite many differences and many conflicts unresolved, what I am proud of is that during my time as a Secretary General, the United Nations has adopted 2 very important agreements. One is the Sustainable Development Goals with the 17 targets. And the other one is Paris Climate Change Agreement. I believe that during the history of 7 decades long history of the United Nations, these SDGs are the most far-reaching and most ambitious vision which has ever been presented to the people of the world. And climate change agreement signed by, as of now, 197 state parties. The condition of a climate change agreement is that even one country rejection will just spoil and annul this climate change agreement. That was a very hard. It is sort of an absolute unanimity. It's not consensus. Consensus, there may be some few countries who may not supporting it, but still you can adopt consensus agreement. But this is 100% unanimity. So people were united at that time when it became to climate change agreement. Then are we on the right track? Maybe or maybe not. Maybe or maybe not. Because of the multilateralism during last 4 years were completely in disarray. Because of the United States just withdrew from climate change agreement, then when so-called number 1, the richest and biggest and most powerful country in the world is out of this agreement, then you cannot expect that this climate change agreement would proceed well. Then what happened to Human Rights Council? They withdrew. In the middle of pandemic, the United States withdrew from WHO. What kind of message? Then there was a very important agreement on security, JCPOA, with Iran and all these European and P5. They agreed, then United States withdrew from all this JCPOA. So they are not yet back. So this is the process which we had to suffer. All the world's people have to suffer. I'm a bit encouraged that President Biden has promised that, first of all, they came back to WHO, they came back to climate change, and they are not yet into Human Rights Council, and they are still negotiating on JCPOA. I hope this multilateralism should really be fully operationalized. Otherwise, we will be in a very much a difficult position to meet the targets. For example, SDGs target is we have 9 years to go. I don't think we will be able to meet all the targets within 9 years. To be able to meet the targets, I think the responsibilities of rich countries like OECD member states, including Korea, they should do much more. First of all, provide financial support, provide science and technological support to many developing countries, particularly Africa and small developing countries. They do not have any capacity, but they are also the victims of what is happening. Climate change does not differentiate whether you are coming from Asia, Africa, Middle East, or United States. They just test all the same way. Therefore, we really have to work together. So one of my strong messages in this book really contains that message that we must be united. We must work together. We must mobilize all resources in global partnership. Thank you.
Ambassador Ali Magashi from Nigeria. Given that the path that multilateralism has followed over time on world peace, especially the Korean Peninsula and the Middle East, is there no other alternative than the wholesome game followed? Can there be peace without denuclearization? Thank you.
This is easy to ask, but difficult to answer at this time. I have my own ideas what should be done between South and North. But unfortunately, it seems that while South Korean government has been really trying to open up, and all the goodwills and readiness to engage North Korea, but for somehow, North Korea has not been responding positively or sincerely, with the sincerity. I think sincerity, that is more important than political words. President Moon Jae-in has visited North Korea once, and they had 3 bilateral meetings, summit meetings. But somehow, not much has been achieved. North Korea, again, instead of opening up, they are now completely isolating themselves, just completely blocking their boundaries. You may understand that most of the diplomatic corps members in North Korea, they have withdrawn from Pyongyang because of very dire conditions of living there. So that suggests that the North Korea seems to have a very difficult economic situation. They claim that there is no coronavirus patient. It's very strange that while Corona has affected 220 countries without exception, all this all. 220 means more than United Nations member states. So it means every corner of the world has been affected by coronavirus. But North Korea claims that there is not a single patient, a single case. So we cannot believe. So it's very difficult to get clear picture about what is happening in North Korea at this time. So it seems that North Korea is not ready. It's not ready for various reasons, maybe for political reasons, for very dire economic and social reasons. They are not responding to United States and to South Korean proposals. But we may have to watch very carefully. For example, when, to my mind, when Kim Jong-un, North Korean leader, announced sort of let's have a arduous march. It's quite a rare case. North Korea has declared arduous march during his grandfather's time in early 1990s. Because of a very severe economic conditions, you know what happened at that time? At least 3.5 million people starved to death during this arduous march. Now, Kim Jong-un has declared another second arduous march campaign. That means they are very serious in their economic situation. The statistics during the February this month, February this year, the trade between China and North Korea just marked merely $2,000 in a month. Then it used to be $7 billion. The total trade North Korea had in 2017, just 4 years ago, $7 billion. And then it must be drastically reduced. We do not have a detailed information because it's not released. So let us keep, I understand that we are keeping a very close eyes on what is happening in North Korea, but it's not, I do not have any detailed information. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think we may be going to a final question. Is there a last one on the side there?
Hello, everyone. I'm Michelle Boni from Sierra Leone. I'm not surprised that, sir, this can be coming from you. I want to congratulate you for your book launch, Resolved. I witnessed instances where in your dispensation with the UN, you played a greater role in my country, Sierra Leone. We had the 11 years decade war, and you were part of the UN team, and a peaceful resolution was held. And the Ebola outbreak again, you were part of it, you played a role. So I want to applaud you, and meeting you again for the second time is a plus for me. When I was working at the state broadcaster in my country, you were part of the transition team that transisted the UN to the state broadcaster, the SLBC. Congratulations, and I want to see more of it, that you put more emphasis on women and children. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. Thank you. So you're asking any question or just a comment?
That was a comment. Shall we then have the final question from you, sir, in the back? And then we will end the Q&A.
Good afternoon. I'm the ambassador of Peru. Thank you very much, my friend, for this book that is a legacy for diplomats and people who wanted to study international relations.
Will you please put your microphone close to your mouth?
Oh, yes. Thank you very much again. I don't know if I want to repeat it, but this book is really a legacy for the new generation and the future generation because you can be explained there many things that people are very interested to know. I wanted to know what is your point of view for the future in between these confrontations who exist now between China and United States, who is a confrontation who have many different kind of aspects, technological, agricultural, industrial, and armament. And what is going to be the position of the Korea in this situation? Thank you very much.
You better ask to Chinese leaders or United States leader, but this is very serious. As a diplomat and as a former Secretary General of the United Nations, this is really a serious and source of deepest concern when so-called G1 and G2 countries are directly confronting from, I think, since 5 years ago, as soon as President Trump took power. During my time as a Secretary General, I think looking back, I was lucky to have collaborative relationship between China and United States. You just, everybody will agree that without China engaging in climate negotiation, I don't think we would have been able to have Paris climate change agreement. China, by any standard, is the largest emitting country. So without China joining, this Paris, whatever climate agreement would be meaningless. Now then, after 5 years, President Biden is also taking almost the same position. And it is seems to be getting more and more serious. And that is what I am very much concerned as a former Secretary General, and also as one of the citizens of Republic of Korea, which is now a neighbor country with whom we have a very close economic and cultural ties. We should, first of all, admit that two countries, most of the European and democratic countries and China have different political systems, and they are having communism. Now, to my mind at this time, the relationship between two countries can be categorized in three ways. Coincidentally, this starts with the C, A, B, C. Then some people jokingly said that the three crises of this world also has three C's: China, climate, Corona. These are all three C's. Yeah? Then on a positive side, let us talk about three C's between China and American relationship. First can be confrontational relationship. Confrontation. Of course, confrontation is still continuing very seriously. You must have heard what President Xi Jinping said during his celebrating 100th anniversary of the Communist Party. This is a very, very, strong. I was very sorry to hear that. I don't know how come a head of state would make that kind of a statement. This is unbelievable. There is a confrontation. There is a big difference between the United States and China in terms of democratic systems, in terms of human rights. So let's put this confrontational C away. There is another less confrontational or a little bit more positive way, competition between China and United States. So there is clearly competition in trade, global trade, and science and technology. Maybe exploration of universe. Who goes first and who does what in the Mars or moon or etc. So let them compete. Let them compete for a better way, for a better sense. Then there is another C, cooperation. Cooperation. Now, I think there are many ways that they must cooperate. First of all, climate action. Without China, United States agreeing and cooperating, no way, no possibility. Then coronavirus, they have to cooperate each other. My suggestion as a former Secretary General is let us put aside a little bit, because during the time of Cold War, United States and Soviet Union, they have been confronting all the times without any good result. In the end, Soviet Union collapsed. Soviet Union collapsed. And then do we have to this repeat of this kind of a Cold War policies between United States and China again? I think that's not an answer. That's not an answer. So let us put a little bit aside and let them compete and cooperate. In the course of this process, cooperation and competition in global trade, etc., then I think that there will be some way to expand the scope of a mutual understanding, scope of cooperation. That's my suggestion. That would be my recommendation to the leaders of two countries if I were Secretary General. So let us see what will happen. But I sincerely hope that the US and China will engage more for humanity, more peace of the world. Now, as you may know, I am working as a chairman of the Boao Forum. This is what the Chinese government has established, and they are very proud of this Boao Forum. So I will do my best to talk this matter with Chinese. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your willingness to answer all these difficult questions. You can see there is a lot of appetite to learn more from you, but I think that was a great effort to discuss the book and answer questions. Dave, can we hand it back to you for the program?
Thank you very much. We have, for the pleasure of listening, we have arranged a special guest to perform two musical pieces for us. She's a violinist. Her name is Sue Sun, and she is a former semi-finalist in the Britain's Got Talent TV show. So can we give her a warm applause to welcome her? Thank you very much. At this moment, we will ask for just 1 minute to switch around our setting here for the book signing session, the autograph session. So if you will bear with us and give us 1 minute. And while we set up, I would just like to remind, so we have, this is for the sake of the safety of not just all of us, but also for SG Ban. So I will be the bad guy and I will ask everybody to form a line. There's a yellow tape right here, but may I just, we will ask as a courtesy to all of the ambassadors to, if everybody else would yield and let the ambassadors go first and line up. I will ask, there's a yellow line in the middle of the floor here, and to, I will call you one at a time, the first person that is lined up there, and so forth. And I will just ask you to, in that line also, to be mindful, because perception is not the only thing, but it is very important, and also for the real sake of social distancing. And we are going to set up such a way that you cannot come up to the Secretary General and for a hug or for a cute selfie too close. However, we will have a young lady up here the entire time to offer to take your smartphone and take a picture of you about 5-6 feet apart. Again, I am sorry to play the bad guy, but this is, I think, prudent. And so if you will please work with us and cooperate, you will have our sincere thanks and appreciation. Just 1 minute, please. Yeah. May I invite the ambassadors to come up at any time? Akanksha, may I ask you to please come up too?